Late Jurassic North America was a hellish place, and western United States in particular was incredibly brutal. Severe dry seasons wreaked havoc, and only the mightiest of dinosaurs could call this place home. This included an array of titanic sauropods and giant theropods, including the infamous Allosaurus, Torvosaurus, and Saurophaganax, making it the land of the giants. But it wasn't just the size that allowed dinosaurs to thrive here, because as the saying goes, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of a fight in the dog. And truer words couldn't be said about the hellhound of these badlands, the Ceratosaurus. The Ceratosaurus, like many of the late Jurassic dinosaurs, was discovered in the Morrison Formation, a sequence of Jurassic rock that covers 13 U.S. states. It was specifically excavated from the Garden Park site in 1883, and its discovery caused great excitement as the specimen was notable for being nearly complete, which helped expedite the description process, as just 1 year later, famous paleontologist Othniel Marsh described and gave this new theropod its name Ceratosaurus, meaning horned lizard, after its iconic nasal horn. The completeness of the remains made it the best-known theropod discovered in America at the time. Yet, this didn't stop Marsh from creating an inaccurate reconstruction, which gave the Ceratosaurus incorrect proportions and an erroneous posture. However, thanks to the development in dinosaur knowledge through the years and the unearthing of new specimens, paleontologists now have a much clearer idea of what this ferocious animal looked like, as well as how it behaved. It is now known that the Ceratosaurus was a medium-sized theropod, yet size estimates vary depending on the species. The type species, Ceratosaurus mesocornis, has been said to be around 5.69 meters or 18.7 feet long. Some individuals as species got even bigger, possibly measuring 6 meters or 20 feet in length. And another species of Ceratosaurus, the Dentisoccatus, was yet again even more grand, with one specimen in particular reaching 7 meters or 23 feet long. This huge individual is thought to have a weight around 980 kilos or 2,100 pounds, making it as hefty as some of the largest American bison. However, certain paleontologists do not believe this particular Ceratosaurus, or any for that matter, were actually of a different species, rather just another Ceratosaurus mesocornis at a different growth stage. And to this day, there is still debate over this matter. But whatever the case, these sizes meant that the Ceratosaurus was by no means small, yet it was still smaller than the theropods it shared its environment with. To compensate, the Ceratosaurus developed a proportionally giant skull which acted as its main killing weapon. The front section was robustly built and wide in order to dish out powerful bites, while the back was more lightly built, allowing the Ceratosaurus to easily open its mouth extremely wide. This mix of power and flexibility proved useful for hunting and granted a versatile diet, but what really made the Ceratosaurus deadly was the deep nature of its jaws. They were constructed with significant depth to support its roughly 26 blade-like teeth that were each proportionally large. The teeth also bore very fine serrations, which were uncharacteristically robust. This meant the Ceratosaurus would have killed by tearing animals apart, taking chunks of meat out at a time, causing very severe blood loss. And his deadly bite wasn't the only unique thing about the Ceratosaurus' skull, as it's also where its iconic horns were found. The Ceratosaurus had 2 small horns in front of each eye, something also seen in the Allosaurus. But what really gripped paleontologists was the prominent standalone horn found behind its nostrils. This horn was by far the tallest, with the core of it being 13 centimeters or 5.1 inches long. While alive, this horn would have been covered by a keratinous sheath, meaning that the true size of the horn is uncertain. The horn was also wider at the base and much narrower at the top. Upon the discovery of the horn, paleontologists thought it was actually the Ceratosaurus' most powerful weapon, both for hunting and defense. Although in recent times, paleontologists are less certain it was used for combat and are more convinced it was primarily used for social display, while possibly playing some role in interspecies combat during mating seasons. Besides the horn and relatively large skull of the Ceratosaurus, it was a typical theropod in terms of its body plan, having a set of powerful legs and reduced arms. Its arms are relatively smaller than seen in other carnivores that were of the same size or even larger, yet some studies have shown that they possibly still maintain their grasping functionality, which could have been utilized for grouping prey. But what really played the biggest role in catching prey were its powerfully built legs, which were adapted for rapid running. It is thought the Ceratosaurus would stalk prey before quickly closing the distance and swiftly dispatching the prey with massive attacks from its jaws. However, what this prey was is something that has been highly debated for years and years. For a long time, it was believed that Ceratosaurus simply preyed on other dinosaurs like juvenile sauropods and Stegosaurus. But after the turn of the century, light was cast upon certain findings such as floodplains, lake margins, and swamps, while other carnivores like the Allosaurus were found to be distributed equally amongst aquatic and terrestrial habitats, leading to the proposal it had a semi-aquatic diet. Furthermore, paleontologists pointed out its flexible deep tail as being crocodile-like, leading to another conjecture that the Ceratosaurus was a semi-aquatic animal that was an excellent swimmer and could seasonally switch between dinosaurs and aquatic food depending upon availability. This claim of it being a semi-aquatic dinosaur was quite polarizing in the community, and most disagreed that it was fully semi-aquatic, with a rising idea being that while the Ceratosaurus was more adapted for hunting aquatic prey than its fellow theropods, it was for the most part still a terrestrial dinosaur that was adept at scavenging and hunting other dinosaurs. Despite this debate over the Ceratosaurus' lifestyle, what many do agree upon is that the theropods that lived alongside had a large role in its feeding behaviors, since to compensate for the high number of carnivores in its environment, the Ceratosaurus reduced direct competition by filling a different ecological niche than its rivals. A 1998 study demonstrated this by pointing out the interactions seen between Ceratosaurus and Allosaurus. In the paper, the researchers identified two different types, or morphs as they called it, of the Allosaurus, which had different snout sizes. The study highlighted how the remains of Ceratosaurus was common in areas that had short-snouted Allosaurus, while being extremely rare in locations that possessed remains of the long-snouted Allosaurus. To the paleontologist, this was clear evidence that the theropods tried to avoid competition, as the Ceratosaurus was similar to the long-snouted Allosaurus, meaning they likely had closer diets and thus increased competition, resulting in the Ceratosaurus being driven out of habitats where this morph of Allosaurus lived. Moreover, the short-snouted Allosaurus had a different enough skull that it likely didn't compete as much with the Ceratosaurus, thus explaining their high level of co-occurrence. However, despite the best efforts to avoid conflict, the hellish nightmare that the Jurassic could be drove direct confrontations from time to time. Severe dry seasons and extended droughts turned the Ceratosaurus' world into a very stressful place, where resources dwindled, resulting in crazed cannibalism, scavenging, and competition. Perhaps the best example of this comes from the Maggie-Meyer Quarry of Colorado. Excavations there revealed that 30% of all dinosaurs in the area had at least one theropod bite mark. This was a staggering number, considering that the average dig sign had a bite rate of less than 4%. Even more bewildering was that after sauropods, theropods were the ones who suffered the most bites, with research showing that Allosaurus and Ceratosaurus were the main culprits in this cesspit of carnage. This portrayed an extremely stressed ecosystem where Ceratosaurus and others were forced to prey and scavenge anything they could find, leading to numerous direct confrontations. Some additional evidence also shows that Ceratosaurus possibly came into conflict with other large theropods like the Torvosaurus and Saurophagnax. It was times like these that the ferociousness of Ceratosaurus was fully displayed, and only the toughest could endure those dark times. Yet the home of the Ceratosaurus was not always that brutal, as there were also distinct wet seasons during which rivers, floodplains, lakes, and other environments became full of life. And it was partially thanks to these golden days that the Morrison Formation is known as the most fertile source of dinosaur bones in North America. Many walks of dinosaur life called it home, but sauropods in particular were plentiful there. Apatosaurus, Brachiosaurus, Camarasaurus, and Diplodocus all lumbered through the lands. Additionally, other herbivore residents include the Camptosaurus, Dryosaurus, Amyalia, Gargoyleosaurus, and the extremely famous Stegosaurus. This was truly the real-life Jurassic Park, but dinosaurs were by no means the only animals, and non-dinosaur life was present in the form of ray-fin fishes, turtles, lizards, phenodons, frogs, salamanders, and aquatic crocodilomodes such as Amphicodylus, and multiple species of pterosaurs such as Methadactylus. Even the flora of the Ceratosaurus' environment was diverse and rich, consisting of fungi, mosses, horsetails, cycads, ginkgos, and a variety of conifers. The Ceratosaurus walked alongside all this different life between 153 to 148 million years ago. This is an impressive reign, but even with its grit and weapons, the Ceratosaurus could not scour the land forever, as it, along with all Morrison dinosaurs, disappeared. No one is sure what took out the Therosaurus, but seeing that its environment was prone to stressful times, it's thought that a particular extended time of harsh conditions may have attributed to the demise of this Jurassic hellhound.